The harsh April sun beat down on Eleanor Thorne's raw wrists as she strained against the iron shackles binding her to the sturdy cottonwood by the river's edge. 3 days she'd been there, abandoned to the mercy of the elements after Xavier Northrop, the most notorious outlaw in the Arizona Territory, had left her to die. It was 1885, and Eleanor had made the grave mistake of witnessing what she shouldn't have: Xavier robbing the Prescott Bank where she'd worked as a teller. When their eyes had met during the heist, she'd known her fate was sealed. He'd taken her hostage during his escape, only to chain her to this tree when she became too much trouble. The rushing waters of the Verde River taunted her, so close yet unreachable. Her throat burned with thirst, her once fine dress now tattered and stained with dirt and blood. Her honey-blonde hair hung in tangled strands around her face as she slumped in exhaustion. A rustling in the brush startled her. Her head jerked up, heart pounding. Was it Xavier returning to finish what he'd started? Or perhaps a coyote smelling weakness? Instead, a small figure emerged, a boy no more than 7, with a shock of sandy hair and curious eyes. He clutched a cloth-wrapped bundle to his chest. "Who are you?" Eleanor croaked, her voice barely audible after days of shouting for help. The boy approached cautiously, eyes wide at the sight of her chains. "I'm Xavier Newsome." He stepped closer. "Are you hungry, madam?" Eleanor felt tears spring to her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "very hungry." The boy unwrapped his bundle, revealing a small loaf of bread and a canteen. He held the water to her lips first, and Eleanor drank greedily, feeling life seep back into her parched body. "Pa doesn't know I'm here," Samuel confessed as he broke off pieces of bread to feed her. "I've been watching you from the hills. Pa's ranch is just over yonder. Your father—" Eleanor began, hope stirring within her. "Could he help me?" Samuel looked down. "Pa doesn't like strangers much since Ma died, but I'll come back tomorrow." He studied her face. "You remind me of her, my ma." Eleanor's heart clenched at the innocent words. "Thank you, Samuel." As he turned to leave, Eleanor called after him. "Please, if you can bring something to break these chains." Samuel nodded solemnly. "I'll try, Ma." The word hit Eleanor like a physical blow. She wasn't anyone's mother, had never expected to be, but the simple word from this child's lips awakened something fierce within her. She watched him disappear into the brush, praying he would return, true to his word. Samuel appeared the following morning with more food and water, but no tools. "Pa keeps the tools locked up," he explained apologetically, "but I told him about you." Eleanor's heart leapt. "What did he say?" "He didn't believe me, said I was making up stories again." Samuel's face fell, "but I'll keep trying." For 3 more days, Samuel came faithfully, bringing what food he could sneak away and tales of his life on the ranch. Each time he called her Ma, and each time Eleanor felt less inclined to correct him. On the 7th day of her captivity, Samuel arrived with a man in tow, tall and broad-shouldered, with a weathered face partially hidden by a dark beard. His eyes, the same sandy color as his son's hair, regarded Eleanor with suspicion. "So you're real after all," he said, his voice deep and rough from disuse. "This is my pa," Samuel announced proudly. "His name is Xander Newsome." Xander approached cautiously, taking in Eleanor's condition with a critical eye. "Who did this to you, miss?" "Xavier Northrop," Eleanor replied, her voice stronger now thanks to Samuel's care. "I witnessed him robbing the Prescott Bank." Something dark flashed in Xander's eyes. "Northrop," he spat. "Should have known." Without another word, he pulled out a set of metal cutters from his saddlebag and approached the chains. In minutes, Eleanor was free, though the shackles remained on her wrists. "We'll need a blacksmith for those," Xander said, nodding at the iron bands. "Can you walk?" Eleanor tried to stand but collapsed immediately. Xander caught her with surprising gentleness. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms. "You're coming home with us, Ma," Samuel exclaimed. Xander's jaw tightened, but he said nothing as he carried Eleanor to his waiting horse. The Newsome ranch was modest, but well kept, a small cabin with a barn and corral nestled in a protected valley. As Xander carried Eleanor inside, she glimpsed a woman's touch in the faded curtains and handmade quilt on the single bed. "You can rest here," Xander said, placing her gently on the bed. "I'll ride to town tomorrow for the blacksmith." "Thank you," Eleanor whispered, overcome with gratitude. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "There's no debt," Xander replied stiffly. "No decent man would leave a woman chained by the river." Samuel brought her a cup of water and sat beside her on the bed. "Are you feeling better, Ma?" Before Eleanor could respond, Xander cut in sharply. "Samuel, she's not your mother. Stop calling her that." Samuel's face fell and Eleanor's heart broke for him. "It's all right," she said softly. "I don't mind." Xander's expression hardened. "It's not all right. You'll be gone soon enough and he'll be hurt all over again." He turned to his son. "Come help me with the horses, Samuel." That night, Eleanor slept in Xander's bed while father and son shared a pallet by the fire. Despite her exhaustion, she lay awake listening to their whispered conversation. "Can't she stay, Pa?" Samuel pleaded. "She has her own life somewhere," Xander replied. "Her own family missing her. But I miss having a ma." A long silence followed. "I know, son, I miss her too." Eleanor turned her face into the pillow, feeling like an intruder in their grief. The next morning, Xander rode to the nearby town of Cedar Springs, returning with the blacksmith who removed her shackles and news that made Eleanor's blood run cold. "Northrop's gang was spotted heading this way," Xander announced after the blacksmith left. "Word is they're looking for something or someone." Fear gripped Eleanor's heart. "Me, they're looking for me." Xander nodded grimly. "That's my guess." "I should leave," Eleanor said, though the thought of facing the wilderness alone terrified her. "I'm putting you and Samuel in danger." "And where would you go?" Xander challenged. "The nearest town is a day's ride, and Northrop's men are between here and there." "I can't ask you to risk." "You didn't ask," Xander cut her off. "Besides, Samuel would never forgive me if I sent you away." Eleanor glanced at the boy, who was pretending not to listen while feeding the chickens outside the open door. "Why does he call me that?" she asked quietly. "Ma." Xander's face softened momentarily. "His mother died 3 years ago. Fever took her quick. You're the first woman he's been around since." "I'm sorry," Eleanor whispered. Xander turned away. "Get some rest. You're still weak." Over the next few days, Eleanor regained her strength. She insisted on helping with household chores, despite Xander's protests. Samuel stayed close to her side, showing her his treasures: a bird's nest, a special rock, his mother's hairbrush that he'd kept hidden in his trunk. Xander remained distant, though Eleanor often caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. Each night, he checked his rifle and took turns keeping watch outside. The threat of Northrop's return hung over them like a storm cloud. A week after her rescue, Eleanor was hanging laundry when Samuel tugged at her skirt. "Will you teach me to read better?" he asked. "Pa tries, but he gets impatient." Eleanor smiled. "Of course I will. My ma was teaching me before she got sick." Eleanor knelt before him, brushing a lock of hair from his eyes. "I'd be honored to continue what she started." That evening, after Samuel was asleep, Eleanor found Xander sitting on the porch, rifle across his knees. "May I join you?" she asked. He nodded once, shifting to make room on the bench. "Thank you," she said after a moment of silence, "for everything you've done." "Samuel's grown attached to you," Xander replied, avoiding her gratitude. "He's a wonderful boy. You've raised him well." Xander gazed out at the darkened landscape. "His mother did most of the raising. Rebecca was, patient in ways I've never been. Eleanor sensed how rarely he spoke his late wife's name. Samuel told me she was teaching him to read. She was educated, daughter of a school teacher back east. A hint of pride colored his voice. I never understood what she saw in a rough rancher like me. Love doesn't always make sense, Eleanor said softly. Xander turned to look at her fully for the first time. What about you? Anyone missing you back in Prescott? Eleanor shook her head. My parents died when I was 19. I came west 2 years ago for the teller position. There's no one waiting for me. Something shifted in Xander's expression. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. I've learned to make my own way. Eleanor hesitated. Though I admit, being part of your household these past days has reminded me how much I miss having a family. Xander was silent for so long that Eleanor thought she'd said too much. Finally, he spoke, his voice rough with emotion. Samuel needs more than I can give him. Eleanor gathered her courage. Perhaps I could stay a while longer. Help with Samuel's education. Their eyes met in the moonlight, and for a moment, Eleanor glimpsed vulnerability beneath his stoic exterior. It would be dangerous, he warned. Northrop won't stop looking. I'm not afraid, she lied. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Yes, you are, but you're brave anyway. He turned back to the darkness. You can stay, for Samuel's sake. Eleanor knew it wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough for now. The next morning, the peaceful routine they'd established shattered when a rider approached the ranch at full gallop. Xander grabbed his rifle and pushed Eleanor inside. Stay with Samuel, he ordered. Eleanor gathered the boy close as they watched through the window. The rider, a grizzled man Eleanor recognized as the blacksmith, dismounted hastily. Northrop's men, they heard him pant. 4 of them, asking questions in town about a woman. Eleanor's knees weakened. Samuel looked up at her, sensing her fear. It's all right, Ma, he whispered, and her heart both broke and swelled at his innocent comfort. Xander entered moments later, his expression grim. We have until nightfall, maybe less. They'll check every homestead in the area. What can we do? Eleanor asked. There's a hidden cave in the hills. My grandfather used it during Apache raids. Xander began gathering supplies. You and Samuel will hide there while I deal with Northrop's men. No, Eleanor protested. It's too dangerous to face them alone. I won't be alone, Xander replied. Blacksmith's gathering men from town. Eleanor shook her head. Let me help. This is my fight too. Xander paused, studying her with new respect. You're not what I expected, Eleanor Thorne. It was the first time he'd spoken her name, and the sound of it on his lips sent a shiver through her. By mid-afternoon, they'd prepared the cave with bedding, food, and water. As Xander led them along a hidden trail, Samuel chattered excitedly about their adventure, oblivious to the danger. The cave entrance was concealed behind a tangle of brush. Inside, it opened into a surprisingly large space. Xander lit a small lantern, illuminating ancient drawings on the walls. Indians? Samuel asked, wide-eyed. Yes, Xander confirmed. This place was sacred to them long before white settlers came. As they arranged their supplies, Eleanor noticed Xander checking his pistol with practiced hands. You've done this before, she observed. Faced dangerous men. Xander's eyes met hers. I wasn't always a rancher. Before she could ask what he meant, he continued, if I'm not back by morning, there's a map in my trunk showing a route to my brother's place in Colorado. Take Samuel there. Fear clutched at Eleanor's heart. You'll come back. It wasn't a question, but Xander answered anyway. I'll do my best. He knelt beside Samuel. Mind Eleanor while I'm gone. Do exactly as she says. Samuel nodded solemnly. I will, Pa. Xander hesitated, then pulled his son into a fierce embrace. When he released him, he turned to Eleanor. Thank you, he said simply, for giving him something I couldn't. Before she could respond, he leaned forward and pressed a brief, hard kiss to her forehead. Then he was gone, leaving Eleanor touching the spot where his lips had been, her heart racing. The hours crawled by. Eleanor read to Samuel from a small Bible Xander had packed, then taught him a hand game to pass the time. As darkness fell, the boy finally drifted to sleep against her shoulder. Eleanor stroked his hair, marveling at how quickly he'd claimed a piece of her heart. And Xander stern, protective Xander had somehow worked his way in too. The thought of losing either of them made her physically ill. A sound at the cave entrance startled her. Eleanor reached for the pistol Xander had left them, her hand trembling. "Eleanor!" Xander's voice, low and urgent, relief washed over her. "We're here," she called softly. Xander appeared, his face streaked with dirt and what looked like blood. Eleanor gasped. "Are you hurt?" She whispered, careful not to wake Samuel. "Not mine," Xander assured her. "Northrop's men found the ranch. We were waiting." "What happened?" "Two dead, two ran, but they'll be back with reinforcements." Xander sank down beside her, suddenly looking exhausted. "We need to leave at first light." "Head north." Eleanor nodded, then noticed he was holding his side. "You are hurt," Xander grimaced. "Just a graze." "Let me see," she insisted. Reluctantly, he lifted his shirt to reveal a shallow bullet wound across his ribs. Eleanor used water from their canteen and strips torn from her petticoat to clean and bind it. "You're good at this," Xander observed, watching her work. "My father was a doctor before the drink took him," Eleanor explained. "I assisted him sometimes." When she finished, their faces were inches apart. In the lantern light, Eleanor could see flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. "I was worried you wouldn't come back," she admitted. Xander's gaze softened. "I made a promise to Samuel," he paused, "and to you." Eleanor felt a warmth bloom in her chest that had nothing to do with the close confines of the cave. Before she could respond, Samuel stirred between them. "Pa," he mumbled sleepily. "You're back." "I told you I would be," Xander replied, ruffling his son's hair. "Now get some more sleep. We have a long ride tomorrow." At dawn, they emerged from the cave to find 3 horses waiting. Xander had moved them during the night. Samuel rode with his father while Eleanor managed the 3rd horse, a gentle mare. They traveled north through rough country, avoiding trails and settlements. Xander knew the land intimately, finding hidden springs and sheltered camping spots as they pushed farther into the wilderness. On the 3rd night, as they camped beneath a rocky overhang, Samuel asked the question that had been brewing since their escape. "Are we ever going back home, Pa?" Xander exchanged glances with Eleanor over the fire. "Not for a while, son. It's not safe." "Because of the bad men looking for Ma?" Eleanor winced at the innocent question. Xander sighed heavily. "Yes," he admitted. "They're looking for Eleanor because she saw something she shouldn't have." Samuel considered this. "Then we'll protect her," he declared. "That's what family does, right, Pa?" Xander's gaze met Eleanor's across the fire. "Yes," he said softly. "That's what family does." Later, after Samuel was asleep, Eleanor joined Xander on watch. "He thinks we're a family," she whispered. "Children see what they want to see," Xander replied, but there was no censure in his tone. "What do you see?" Eleanor asked boldly. Xander studied her for a long moment. "A brave woman who's turned my life upside down." Eleanor laughed softly. "Not what you signed up for when you rescued me." "No," Xander agreed. "But I'm finding I don't mind as much as I should." The admission hung between them, neither willing to take the next step. "We should reach my brother's place in 2 days," Xander said finally. "You'll be safe there while I deal with Northrop." Eleanor tensed. "You're going back. Men like Northrop don't stop. As long as he's hunting you, we'll never know peace." "Then I should go with you," Eleanor insisted. "I'm the one he wants." "Absolutely not," Xander growled. "I won't risk you." It's not your decision to make, Eleanor countered. This is my fight, and Samuel, would you risk leaving him motherless again? The words struck her like a physical blow. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Xander said, his voice softening. But he's already lost one mother. I won't let him lose another, Eleanor's breath caught. Is that what I am to him? To you? Xander looked away. I don't know what you are to me, I just know I can't lose you. The admission hung in the night air between them. Slowly, Eleanor reached for his hand, twining her fingers with his. Then don't push me away, she whispered. Xander's grip tightened on hers. For now, it was enough. They reached Xander's brother's ranch the following evening, a sprawling property nestled in a fertile valley. Xavier Newsome was younger than Xander but had the same steady gaze and quiet strength. So this is the woman worth running from Northrop for, Ezra remarked after introductions. Can't say I blame you, brother. Eleanor blushed while Xander glowered. Samuel, oblivious to the undercurrents, was already exploring the barn with Ezra's two daughters. That night, after a proper meal, the first they'd had in days, Ezra pulled Xander aside while Eleanor helped his wife, Martha, with the dishes. You're planning something foolish, Ezra accused when they were alone on the porch. Northrop won't stop, Xander replied. You know his reputation. And you know mine, Ezra countered. The Rangers haven't forgotten what we did in '78. Eleanor, passing by the open window with a stack of plates, froze at their words. That was a lifetime ago, Xander said. I'm not that man anymore. No, Ezra agreed. Now you're a man with a son. And from the way you look at her, a woman you care for. Eleanor held her breath, waiting for Xander's denial. Is it that obvious? He asked instead, his voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. Only to someone who knows you, Ezra assured him. Does she feel the same? A long pause followed. I think she might, Xander finally admitted. But there's no future in it as long as Northrop lives. Then we deal with him together, Ezra decided. Like old times. Eleanor set down the plates and moved quietly away from the window, her mind racing. What had Xander and his brother done in '78? Who were they really? Later that night, Eleanor found Xander alone in the barn checking their horses. You were Texas Rangers, she said without preamble. Xander stiffened, then turned to face her. You were eavesdropping. I was passing by, Eleanor corrected. Why didn't you tell me? It's not something I'm proud of, Xander admitted. We did things, necessary things, but hard ones. Is that how you recognized Northrop's name? Eleanor pressed. Did you hunt him before? Xander sighed heavily. Yes, he was part of a gang we chased across 3 states. We caught most of them, but Northrop escaped. He killed 2 good men in the process. So this is personal, Eleanor realized. It became personal the moment he chained you to that tree, Xander said fiercely. But yes, there's history there. Eleanor stepped closer. Then we face him together. All of us. Eleanor, no, she cut him off. I'm tired of running, tired of putting you and Samuel in danger. We end this. Xander studied her face, then nodded slowly. All right, but we do it my way. The plan was simple but dangerous. Word would be sent to Cedar Springs that Eleanor had been seen at Ezra's ranch. Northrop's spies would carry the news back, and the outlaw would come to them on their terms, with the advantage of prepared ground. For a week, they fortified the ranch. Ezra's wife and daughters, along with Samuel, were sent to stay with neighbors 20 miles away. Eleanor refused to join them despite Xander's insistence. My place is here, she said firmly. I won't hide anymore. As they waited, something shifted between Eleanor and Xander. The constant danger stripped away pretense, leaving only raw truth between them. One evening, as they checked the defenses together, Xander finally asked the question that had been on his mind. If we survive this, he began hesitantly. What then? Eleanor's heart quickened. What do you mean? You know what I mean, Xander said, his eyes holding hers. Samuel calls you Ma, you've become part of our lives, but when this is over, you'll be free to return to yours. Eleanor stepped closer. What if I don't want my old life back? What if I've found something better? Xander's expression softened. Have you? Instead of answering, Eleanor rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. For a moment, Xander remained frozen in surprise. Then his arms came around her, pulling her against him as he deepened the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Xander rested his forehead against hers. I never expected to feel this way again, he confessed. After Rebecca died, I thought that part of me was gone forever. And now, Eleanor whispered. Now I'm terrified of losing you, he admitted. But more terrified of never having told you how I feel. Eleanor smiled through tears. I love you, Xander Newsome. You and Samuel both. Xander's kiss was his answer, tender and fierce all at once. 2 days later, their lookout spotted riders approaching 6 men, led by the unmistakable figure of Xavier Northrop. With his black hat and scarred face, he looked every inch the demon of Eleanor's nightmares. Ready? Xander asked, checking his rifle one last time. Eleanor nodded, her own pistol loaded and ready. Ezra and 3 of his ranch hands took positions around the property. The plan was to let Northrop approach, thinking he had the advantage of numbers, then spring their trap. But plans rarely survive first contact with the enemy. As Northrop's gang neared, one of Ezra's men fired too early. Instantly, the outlaws scattered, taking cover behind rocks and trees. Damn it, Xander muttered. So much for surprise. What followed was a brutal exchange of gunfire. Eleanor, positioned in an upstairs window, picked her shots carefully as Xander had taught her. She managed to wound one of Northrop's men, sending him scrambling back toward the trees. Hours passed in a tense stalemate. As dusk approached, Xander slipped back into the house where Eleanor kept watch. They're trying to wait us out, he reported. Northrop knows we can't hold forever. What do we do? Eleanor asked. Before Xander could answer, a cry came from outside. One of Ezra's men had been hit. In the confusion that followed, Eleanor glanced out the window to see Northrop himself darting toward the house. He's coming, she warned. Xander moved to intercept, but Northrop was quicker. He crashed through the side door, pistol raised. Well, well, he drawled, his scarred face twisting into a cruel smile. The bank teller and the ex-ranger, how touching. Xander positioned himself between Northrop and Eleanor. It's over, Xavier. Your men are outgunned. Northrop laughed. Maybe so, but I'll still have the pleasure of killing you both before they take me down. Eleanor saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Without thinking, she shoved Xander aside as Northrop fired. The bullet grazed her arm, searing pain blossoming in its wake. Xander recovered instantly, his own gun firing twice. Northrop staggered back, blood blooming on his chest. His eyes widened in surprise before he crumpled to the floor. Eleanor. Xander was at her side in an instant, examining her wound. How bad? Just a graze, she assured him, though the pain was significant. Is he? Dead, Xander confirmed, glancing at Northrop's still form. It's over. Outside, the remaining outlaws, seeing their leader fall, quickly surrendered to Ezra and his men. Later that night, after her wound had been cleaned and bandaged, Eleanor sat with Xander on the porch of Ezra's house. The stars spread across the sky in a brilliant tapestry, untouched by the violence of the day. Samuel will be back tomorrow, Xander said, his arm around her shoulders. He'll be glad to see you're safe, Eleanor smiled. I can't wait to see him. I've missed him. He's missed his ma too, Xander replied. He talks about you constantly. Eleanor turned to face him. What happens now? Xander took her hands in his. That depends on you. My ranch back in Cedar Springs is probably still standing. We could go back, rebuild what Northrop's men damaged. He paused. Or we could start fresh somewhere else, together. Together, Eleanor repeated, savoring the word. As a family. If you'll have us, Xander said, his voice rough with emotion. I know it's fast, and I'm not much of a catch-a-widower with a ranch that barely breaks even and a boy who needs more than I know how to give. Eleanor silenced him with a kiss. You're everything I never knew I wanted, she whispered against his lips. You and Samuel both. 2 weeks later, they returned to Xander's ranch. The damage wasn't as bad as they'd feared. The outlaws had ransacked the house, but left the structures intact. With help from neighbors, they soon had the place livable again. Samuel was overjoyed to have both his pa and his ma home. He threw himself into helping with repairs, proudly showing Eleanor every corner of the property he knew so well. On a warm evening in June, as the sun painted the western sky in shades of gold and crimson, Xander led Eleanor to the cottonwood tree by the river, not the one where she'd been chained, but another, older tree on his property. Rebecca and I were married under this tree, he said quietly. It seemed fitting to ask you here. Eleanor's heart skipped a beat as Xander dropped to one knee before her. I'm not good with words, he began, but I know what I feel. You brought life back into our home. You gave Samuel the mother he needed, and you gave me a second chance at love I never thought I'd have. He pulled a simple gold band from his pocket. Eleanor Thorne, will you marry me? Tears blurred Eleanor's vision. Yes, she whispered. With all my heart, yes. Their wedding was a simple affair held 2 weeks later, with Ezra standing as Xander's best man and Samuel proudly giving Eleanor away. The whole community turned out to celebrate, impressed by the woman who had survived being chained by the river and helped bring down the notorious Xavier Northrop. As they spoke their vows beneath the cottonwood tree, Eleanor thought about the strange twists of fate that had brought her here. Had Northrop not taken her hostage, had Samuel not found her by the river, had Xander not followed his son that day, she would never have found this happiness. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the circuit preacher declared. You may kiss your bride. As Xander's lips met hers, sealing their union, Samuel cheered louder than anyone. When they broke apart, the boy rushed forward to embrace them both. We're really a family now, he exclaimed. Xander lifted his son into his arms. We've been a family since the day you brought bread to a stranger by the river and called her Ma, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Eleanor wrapped her arms around them both, her heart so full it might burst. From captive to beloved, from stranger to mother and wife, her journey had been unlikely and dangerous, but she wouldn't change a single step that had led her here. That night, as she lay in Xander's arms in what was now truly their bed, Eleanor whispered, "Thank you for finding me." Xander brushed a kiss against her temple. "Thanks, Samuel. He saw what I was too blind to see, that you were already part of us, chains and all." Outside their window, the river flowed on, its waters catching moonlight like scattered silver. Once it had been the witness to her despair. Now it sang a lullaby to her joy. Eleanor Thorne Newsome closed her eyes and dreamed of all the tomorrows waiting for her family, no longer chained by fear, but bound together by love.